A little introduction into the topic. What is Gharar? Gharar is one of the prohibited elements in financial transactions in Islam. In Arabic, it means uncertainty. Gharar refers to any transactions involving uncertainty or ignorance on the part of one or both parties to a contract regarding the characteristics of the object, its availability and existence at the moment of contract. Islam has always taught believers to be just fair and ethical in all aspects of life. The Quran has several scriptures that demonstrate that Gharar is forbidden and that Allah forbids it, including Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 188. And don't some of you consume the property of another part of you in a false way, and don't you take that property to the judge, so that you can eat some of the other person's property by sin, even though you know. Islam bans any filthy and corrupt methods of making money. Gharar is an obstacle to achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 16, which is to achieve peace, justice, and strong institutions. Next, I will explain the identification of action that can lead to Gharar activity. It's been described as the selling of what is not yet present, such as bird in the sky or fish in the water. Gharar itself is such a broad concept whereby it can happen in almost any scenarios, such as when the declaration of ownership is questionable. Number 2, when a commodity is present, quality or properties are unsure, or a deal is done based on misunderstanding, where consequences are hidden because of an absence of transparency between the parties. Now we know what Gharar is. The next step is to identify Gharar so that we can prevent ourselves from committing this sin. There are two conditions whereby Gharar is at an extreme level that can result in a haram transaction, and these are: number 1 is uncertainty over subject matter, and the second one is uncertainty over price. As we know, in the context of legal agreement, certainty is required in order to form a trust as to whether property is or is not covered by the trust. The certainty of the subject matter in a contract must be segregated from any other properties in order to gain more certainty, as this will contribute to the validity of a contract. Secondly, the uncertainty over price can happen when a subject matter of the contract price is unknown or doubtful, as they may possess properties that lead to it. This type of transaction is considered unethical, as the buyer may not get anything and can result in the loss. Instead of knowing about how to identify the action that may lead to Gharar, now let's take a look at the type of Gharar. Gharar can be classified into two groups. The first group refers to the element of doubt, and the second group refers to risk, when the probability and uncertainty are prevalent. There are two types of Gharar, which are Gharar Fahish and Gharar Yasir. Gharar Fahish is known as major Gharar. This type of Gharar is clearly prohibited under Sharia Islam because it has a high level of uncertainty. Conventional insurance policies are one of example of Gharar Fahish, which have a predatory tendency and are quite unclear. Besides that, minor Gharar, which we call it as Gharar Yasir. Yasir in Arabic terms means slight ambiguity in transaction. Gharar Yasir also translates as little uncertainty that is naturally present in all contracts and transactions. An unilateral contract or al-tabarru in Gharar Yasir, such as gift, is considered to be a contract that most scholars agree to give pardon and relaxation because this part cannot be avoided. This type of Gharar does not result in significant harm and losses, also has few risks, and does not produce disagreement. Next, we are moving on to how to avoid gharar when carrying out economic activities. To illustrate the point, the frequent activities that individuals engage on a daily basis is buying and selling. In Islam, all transactions must be conducted in accordance with Sharia. One way to avoid gharar is it is possible to prevent selling a product that does not exist, to avoid misrepresenting the pricing, and to verify that all parties can give their consent to agree for the contract to be valid. A seller or financier must first own the item before they can distribute. This will keep property in the hands of the people as one of the maqasid Sharia aspects to preserve the money from loss. Gharar also can be avoided by a complete clarification or full disclosure of any financial transaction. In Islamic finance, contractual parties must provide accurate and detailed information of items such as price, characteristics, and condition, since it is mandatory for every transaction to be disclosed to ensure that both the subject and the pricing of the sale exist, and both parties are capable of delivery. This matter in line with the verse in the Quran, the Surah An-Nisa, verse 29. You who have believed, do not consume one another's wealth unjustly, but only in lawful business by mutual consent. Another way to avoid gharar is applying Islamic measure in any business transaction or services. A contract should not cover more than one transaction. Hence, two-sale transactions in one are prohibited. Example, claims that a sale transaction and a leasing agreement cannot be integrated into a single contract. The contracts must be devoid of undue uncertainty. In general, the prohibition of gharar has connection and relationships with few SDGs, particularly those on social and economic pillars, because SDGs also provide their perspective from an Islamic perspective. Islam has shown some concern with human rights. In Surah Al-Imran, verse 114, they believe in Allah and the last day, and they enjoin what is right and forbid the wrong, and hasten to do good deeds, and these are of the righteous one. This excerpt of Quran has clearly proved that Islam is concerned about our right and prohibit any practice that harm others' right. Islam concern has proven through maqasid Sharia, which is protect 5 objectives of faith, life, lineage, wealth, and intellect. SDGs also emphasize their Islamic perspective in order to prohibit gharar. Their guidelines and principle of sustainability in Quran, such as adil, justice, mizan, balance, amanah, trust, and the last one, haq, right. From this guideline, SDGs in Islamic perspective really emphasize consumer welfare, economic efficiency, and social justice aspects. In this case, gharar practice activities will cause some goals of sustainability development to be unachievable, such as peace, justice, and strong institution from Goal 16, and partnership for the Goal 17. Generally, we know Islam has prohibited us from gharar, but the question here is, why do they prohibit us from gharar? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in many verses that He forbade any practice that bring unjust and harm to individuals and society. Here is some rationale of the prohibition of gharar. First, the prohibition of gharar is to avoid unanticipated loss. Islam prohibits gharar as it may cause uncertainty of ownership and possession. Gharar happens when the seller sells something that does not exist yet. The situation cannot guarantee possession in the future, for which we don't even know the probability of it, and may cause loss. Other than that is to avoid selfishness among sellers. Gharar may lead to incompleteness of information, which may promote selfishness, in which the seller can easily take advantage of buyers by increasing the pricing against market price, or may be delivered the goods in the wrong expectation. It may it easily for the seller to oppress the weakest, as Islam contains a rich resource for the education of mankind toward peace and harmony. Islam has prohibited us from gharar to prevent conflict between sellers and buyers in contract and transaction. The conflict may arise when the seller is not able to hand over the goods to buyers at the time of the transaction. This may cause customers dissatisfaction and anger. To repeat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates the person who takes others' property in unjust way. So that why gharar is haram in Islam in order to prevent injustice in contract and trading. Islam has forbidden us from practicing gambling to avoid gharar, which will cause injustice in the distribution of wealth in few and unjust, in which the rich become richer by exploiting the poorer, whereas by following Islam guidance, where it is free from gharar, it can create better economic development and distribute wealth equally among the society. To conclude, the prohibition of gharar or ambiguity in Islamic law is a demonstration of the viability and infallibility of Islamic injunction emanating from the Holy Quran and the prophetic tradition. Also, uncertainty cannot be avoided altogether in any business. Therefore, the prohibition of gharar has its rationale, such as to ensure full consent and satisfaction of the parties in a contract, and without a full consent, the contract may be invalid. Gharar in commercial contracts may lead to injustice and exploitation among the contracting parties. That is why honesty among the society should be practiced to live the best life in Islamic economy. As a result, as a Muslims, we must avoid engaging in any actions that contain those banned characteristics or prohibited elements. That's all from us. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.